Hello, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. It's Sunday, the 18th of September. You're watching 6 News. Our top stories tonight. Queen Elizabeth II's funeral fast approaches as mourners continue to pay tribute to the late monarch. The Prime Minister now the latest to see the Queen's coffin as he meets with King Charles III. Also, is it too soon to push for a republic? We speak to a young monarchist amid claims that having kings and queens is too old-fashioned and that Australia's youth is moving away from the monarchy. The National set to retain the WA seat of North West Central and remain the state's official opposition as the Western Australia Party fails to make much of an impact despite running two candidates. And the stage is set. Full act continues after the Swans' nail-biting win over Collingwood in the AFL, now set to take on Geelong in the grand final. Good evening. Anthony Albanese has met King Charles III and UK Prime Minister Liz Truss as thousands continue to mourn the loss of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The King made an unannounced visit to the queue where people have been waiting in line to see the late monarch's coffin ahead of her funeral tomorrow. US President Joe Biden also touching down in Britain, but even with those lines, not everyone is paying tribute. One Melbourne councillor and Victorian election candidate now speaking to 6 News about why he abstained from the opening of a meeting in protest of emotion mourning the Queen's death. Reporter Lincoln Holmes has the exclusive details.
Thousands of people are continuing to wait to see the Queen's coffin, and the Prime Minister has now seen it too.
You could feel the raw emotion in Westminster Hall. It was a great honour to attend with my partner Jodie Hayden, with the Governor-General and his wife, Linda Hurley, and also the Acting High Commissioner. And we were escorted in by the usher of the Black Rod, and also I met with the Speaker of the UK Parliament as well.
Anthony Albanese meeting with King Charles and UK PM Liz Truss ahead of Queen Elizabeth's funeral tomorrow.
It was quite an extraordinary moment in history.
The funeral will be broadcast online and on TV across Britain and the world, but not everyone is mourning her.
My name is Jorge Jorquera and I'm a Socialist Councillor in the City of Maribyrnong.
One Melbourne councillor and Victorian Socialist candidate for the state election has taken action in response to a motion mourning the Queen's death.
You know, the day before council, I gave notice to councillors and officers that I would not, first of all, I asked, would there be a mourning, knowing there probably would be some sort of mourning minutes at the beginning of our council meeting this month. And once that was confirmed for me, I said, look, I cannot bring myself to be in a room when the monarchy is commemorated. Didn't really have to give too many reasons. I wasn't even really questioned much by councillors.
He's responded to claims it was a stunt, while his party says that they, quote, hope the British monarch pays back the wealth they stole.
There was no major thought. It was like a thought bubble. I thought, how could I just can't be there. Told the councillors I couldn't be there, couldn't be part of that commemoration. That was it. Then, things sort of rolled on, and then other, people put out a press release about it, etc. But yeah, to be honest, I mean, I'm not saying, look, I could have thought about it. Maybe I should have thought about it more and done it more as an organised sort of media thing. But in all honesty, it was something very heartfelt. Like I just found it. There was something abhorrent about it for me, to be honest.
Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
Calls for Australia to become a republic continued tonight, even after the Prime Minister confirmed there wouldn't be a referendum on it in this term of government. But some have also claimed it's too soon to be having the conversation. Earlier I caught up with Alessandro Rossini, a young monarchist from the Australian Monarchist League, amid claims that having kings and queens is too old-fashioned and that Australia's youth is moving away from the monarchy. Do you think it's too soon to start talking about a republic?
I think it is, especially where we are now, in a period of mourning as well in Australia. Now, by no means do we think that the debate should be shut down. We absolutely welcome the debate, and the reason why we welcome it is because we believe we have a stronger model and a stronger system, especially when we're referring to the Australian choice model put forward by the Republican movement. But look, not until, I would say, after the funeral, after the National Day mourning actually in Australia, then we're more than welcome to welcome such a debate. But I would also argue perhaps let King Charles reign for a little bit so we can see what type of king he's going to be first. But it's a system that matters at the end of the day, not the monarch.
Do you think, and I've seen some criticism of the monarchy just online, that it's a bit old-fashioned here? I mean, talking about kings, and I know it feels like a lifetime, and it has been for a while, that Queen Elizabeth has been on the throne. I mean, 70 years is extraordinary. Most people alive have not seen another British monarch. But now we're talking about King Charles III. Can you see where some are coming from when they say it's a bit of an old-fashioned concept that we've got this unelected monarch ruling over all these nations, and it's, you know, under the premise of him being king, and we're hearing, we've got statements coming out saying obedient servants and things like that. Can you see how that might be seen as a bit old-fashioned?
Look, I can appreciate why it's old-fashioned, and why it comes across as old-fashioned. It certainly, I can understand that. But what I would say is that the reason why the monarchy exists in this country today, and one of the reasons why it was voted resoundingly supported in '99, was because fundamentally our system works. Out of the world's top 5 democracies, 4 are constitutional monarchies. That's according to the 2020 Democracy Index by The Economist. So there is clear evidence to suggest that our system works both effectively and both productively for the people of Australia. And yes, you know, there were references to obedient servant, as you mentioned there, but that's also part of the tradition of our system. I was in Canberra for the proclamation of the new king, and there was history throughout the entire ceremony. It was done that way because that's the way it's always been done. In Australia, we don't get to see those sort of traditional events often, but we got to see that, and I think it was really important. You always hear the saying, the Brits do ceremonies so well. Well, there's a reason why they do it so well. It's because they look back at the history books. And sure, occasionally things need updating, but generally speaking, I would think what's been done so far works quite well.
Do you think it really was overwhelmingly backed, though, in 1999? It was 55-45. The ACT was majority against. Most states were about in the 52-53. I think there was a 51 there. Is that really overwhelmingly backed? Because there is some people out there, some analysis, who say, look at the current demographics of people, look at the people who supported it, the demographics back in 1999, there would not be an Australian monarchy. We would not have a king of Australia if that vote happened today.
Look, I think in regards to referendum standards, it was a resounding success. Only 9 out of 44 referendums have been successful in Australia. So the referendum was successful. In regards to the demographics, well, I think you would find that they probably reflect, there would be changes, obviously, naturally, it was just over 20 years ago. But I think relatively people would continue to support our system. And like 1/3 of Labor voters voted for the monarchy, whereas the Labor Party's got a strict no within the party, at least, where they can't sort of speak out against the Republic. So I think you would find that a lot of Australians, despite their political beliefs or leanings where they vote, would support our system. The amount of people from the Greens that support the AML is ridiculous. I mean, you wouldn't think that when you see the policies put out by the Greens in regards to the Republic. But there are a lot of supporters from all walks of life, from all political parties, that support our system of government because it fundamentally works better.
And for more on calls for a Republic, check out the latest edition of Spin Check Live, where we've got a panel covering this. It's on our YouTube channel right now. Well, meanwhile, it looks like the Nationals will retain the Western Australian state seat of North West Central after a by-election, meaning they will retain the official opposition status. Let's take a closer look at the results. Now, it's important to mention here the ALP was not running a candidate. Instead, we saw the Nationals, the Liberals, the Greens legalise cannabis, the Western Australia Party, One Nation, the No Mandatory Vax Party, Small Business Party, and Liberal Democrats, plus a couple of independents run. So on a two-party preferred, there were really 2 realistic options. It was Nationals versus Greens and Nationals versus Liberal. It ended up being Nats versus Libs. Not exactly uncommon, not exactly unheard of even in this seat. Two-party preferred, Nationals 59.7, Liberals 40.3. A comfortable victory for them there. The Greens, as the party, some might say, is closest to Labor there, they had about 12% of the vote. That's first preference, might I add. Nationals already had 40% first preference, Liberals 26%. Legalised cannabis actually came in 4th, one of their best ever lower house results. 5.4%. Followed was one candidate from the Western Australia Party, then One Nation, then another candidate from the Western Australia Party, because they were running two candidates for some reason. Followed that, we had no mandatory vaccine or business, then all the independents, and very last was the Liberal Democrats with around 0.7% of the vote. Now, what this really means is it won't shake up WA's politics as much as we thought. The Nationals will keep their 4 seats, the Liberals will keep their 2 in the lower house. That means the Nationals retain opposition status. It wouldn't be a 3-3 split where we'd probably see the Liberals become opposition again. What we do have is the Nationals opposition leader, and there's a Liberal leader who is not exactly in a coalition agreement either. It's an alliance. So there we go. That is Northwest Central. Looking like, might we add, that will be the last by-election for the year, with the Victorian state election in November and then the New South Wales state election in March next year. The Rail, Tram and Bus Union has cancelled plans to switch off Opal ticket machines just days before a planned shutdown. Unions New South Wales has said that, quote, all Opal machines at train stations in Sydney and New South Wales would be turned off indefinitely starting from this coming Wednesday. But that plan will now not go ahead because, according to the union, there were irrational and illogical threats made by the state's Transport Minister. The RTBU says they are still, quote, fully committed to giving fare free travel to commuters and are now considering alternative ways that this can be achieved. The European Union presidency has called for the establishment of an international tribunal, for war crimes after new mass graves were found in Ukraine amid the ongoing war with Russia. President Volodymyr Zelensky has now claimed there is, quote, new evidence of torture from the bodies buried there, with approximately 450 graves found outside the formerly Russian-occupied city. Zelensky said that this is, quote, what the Nazis did, and he added that Russia would be held accountable both on the battlefield and in courtrooms. At least 3 people are dead after 2 planes collided mid-air in the United States. Authorities say a single-engine Cessna 172 and another aircraft collided near Vance Brand Airport in Longman in Colorado at around 1 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time overnight. Investigations are ongoing. Changing pace now, and fallout continues tonight after the Sydney Swans' nail-biting victory over Collingwood in the AFL, now set to take on Geelong in the grand final. Pies coach Craig McRae has now said he wants Jordan De Goey to stay at the club despite a number of off-field controversies. Senior reporter Darby Travers has the latest.
Well, the stage is set for the AFL Grand Final next weekend. Geelong will take on Sydney at the MCG after the Swans defeated the Magpies by 1 point last night. Sydney went out to a lead of more than 5 goals at one point, but Collingwood came back hard in both the third and fourth quarters, losing the game with just seconds to spare after a season where they bounced back from 17th on the ladder last year to the top 4. Collingwood's coach has said keeping Jordan De Goey is a priority despite a number of off-field controversies. He also said he decided not to immediately address his players after the game, given emotions were all running high. This year's AFL Grand Final will be the first back in Melbourne since 2019, with it moved interstate in both 2020 and 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Tens of thousands are expected to attend in what many anticipate will be a thriller.
Now, taking a look at what's making news on SIXNewsAU.com right now, and a new edition of Commonwealth Knowledge is out right now, taking a look at a new High Court ruling. As this piece says, the court accepted that a man convicted of aggravated robbery could be detained after his sentence had expired, as he posed a, quote, unacceptable risk to the community. It involved lots of questions about the rule of law and specifically separation of powers. We'll check that out. Another edition of Commonwealth Knowledge as well. Might I add, it was delayed after the Queen's death. Democracy and drafting the Constitution. We'll look at the key steps in the development of our Constitution. And an exclusive and a scathing interview with 6 News veteran journalist Patrick Condren has revealed for the first time why he resigned as 7th state political editor in Queensland, saying he was hugely disillusioned with the mainstream media. Don't forget, if you want to see more, subscribe to our newsletter, 6 News Now. Link to do so on our website right now, where you can read those pieces and plenty more, 6newsau.com. Now, here's a look at what's coming up later tonight on WAMN News.
Thanks, Leo. Tonight on WAMN News, Show Me the Money, Please, an exclusive news poll on whether the McGowan government should consider a cost of living cash relief payment.
Done and dusted. The results of a Northwest Central by-election after Labor pulled out.
Australia prepares to mourn Her Majesty's passing with a public holiday.
Roll up, roll up. The Perth Raw Show is back for another year of fun and festivities, and later Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. Join us tonight on the WAMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Alright, thanks to the team at WAMN News there. Now taking a look at tomorrow's weather forecast right across the country. Brisbane, partly cloudy, 16 degrees. Sydney, 21, starting the day, -1 in Canberra, getting up to 14 later in the day there. 16 over in Melbourne, 14 in Hobart, Adelaide sunny, 17, also sunny in Alice Springs, 26 degrees. 16 and heavy showers in Perth and in Darwin, a warm top of 34. Before we go tonight, recapping the top story here on 6 News this hour, and Anthony Albanese has met King Charles III and UK Prime Minister Liz Truss as thousands continue to mourn the loss of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The King making an unannounced visit to the queue where people have been waiting in line to see the late monarch's coffin ahead of her funeral tomorrow. And just finally tonight, as we've been doing on Spin Check Live in the 2 episodes, or maybe actually we only did it in one of those episodes that we've done, at 8 p.m. Australian Standard Time every Thursday, we'll be looking at a random political party. Now, you can vote in our new Patreon poll. We've got 4 options up there from our extremely lengthy A to Z list. We've got thousands of parties, and the beauty of it, the random selector, we could get the ALP, or we could just get a single party that existed at a state by-election in 1922, for all we know. So, you can check that out, patreon.com/6NewsAU. Again, only $4 a month, exclusive benefits, the poll, the podcast, much more. And also, don't forget, tune in to Spin Check Live every single Thursday at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, live on our YouTube channel. And that is 6 News for this Sunday evening. You can stay up to date with all the latest headlines by heading to our website, 6newsau.com, and by following us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Lit. You search 6NewsAU to find us. Help keep us independent as well by donating just $4 a month and receive those exclusive benefits. Patreon.com/6NewsAU. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company.